Hello, everybody. I can see you all coming in now. We'll give it a couple of seconds before we start, just to let some people come in. Give it a couple of minutes. I hope you're all enjoying the weather today. I'm in London and it's a lot cooler today, and I'm not very a summer baby, so I'm really happy with the little bit of rain that we've got this morning. It was really nice. I hope that everybody's okay. We'll just give it a second or so to let some more people in before we get started. Lovely. Okay. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well and welcome to today's live event hosted by Emily from the Dogs Trust. We'll be having an in-depth look into the history of the Dogs Trust and their rehoming centres today. We'll be having a behind-the-scenes view of day-to-day life at the rehoming centre, where they go the extra mile for the dogs that need them. I know that you're the same, and I love dogs. So I cannot wait to hear all about this today and hope you're excited too. We would love to hear anything about any special dogs in your life, past or present. So make sure that you put any memories or questions into the chat or comments on Zoom or YouTube. And then we'll talk about those at the end. We'll start in just a moment. But a reminder first, if you're watching us on Zoom, you should see a show captions button at the bottom of your screen. If you click that, subtitles should appear under everything we say. They might not be 100% accurate, but they will be useful for residents who may struggle to hear the TV sometimes. Like I said, do feel free to ask any questions in the chat and comments, or indeed answer any questions posed at you there as well. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you say hi and give your home name in the comments so that we know you're with us today. If you're not sure on how to do this, all the details for setup can be found on the Life Enrichment intranet page under Tech. And that is all from me. Hi, Emily. Thank you for being with us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I will disappear and hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name's Emily Matthews, and I am a supporter relations officer. I'm actually based in South Norfolk in a little branch called Snetterton. And I don't know if Heatherset Hall are listening at the moment, but a big hello to them because I popped in to visit them last week. So I now know how amazing all your facilities are. But I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you can all see this okay. Do give me a shout if you can't, but I'm going to carry on as if you can. So I'm going to be talking to you for about 45 minutes or so. Feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like, and I'll answer them at the end of the 45 minutes. But yeah, I'd love to know any questions you have. And like Beck said, if you've got any stories about any dogs that you've had before, I love hearing about them too. But I'm going to be talking to you about the background of Dogs Trust, what the rehoming centres look like, what it is as a charity that I think kind of takes us the extra mile within our rehoming centres, and how we are supported by the public. I believe this is kind of part 1 of 2. I think the second part is coming in October, where another supporter relations officer will be telling you more about what we do as a wider work, which is really interesting. So I do recommend you tuning in for that one as well. But Dogs Trust background. So I think people tend to think that Dogs Trust is quite a new charity. We're not. We're actually pretty old. We were founded in 1891 by a lady called Lady Gertrude Stock, and we were called the National Canine Defence League. So for anybody that hasn't heard of Dogs Trust, you've probably heard of that. We were quite well known for that. Lady Gertrude Stock, she was actually a part of the first ever Crufts meetings. So I'm sure you've known Crufts on the telly with all the agility trials. That was originally a monthly meetup where they would kind of talk about dog welfare. And that was where Lady Gertrude Stock decided that she wanted to protect dogs from torture and ill usage of every kind, which I always think sounds a bit dramatic now, but back then, obviously, dog fights in particular were really popular. So she wanted to put an end to that. And she opened up her first centre in 1912 in Fulham. So going on from that, we did various campaigns. Obviously, the one was to kind of end dog performances that were cruel throughout the UK, and then we did a lot throughout World War I. So I will play you a short video, and it just gives you a good idea of kind of how things were back then. I think this is an interesting video of a technique that maybe our staff used for alternative methods for dog hair. If I can just get the play.
Dog wool for winter comforts. That's one of the latest and brightest ideas of the Canine Defence League. And it has the willing cooperation of the four-legged sports, who are only too pleased to give their overcoats for socks for the forces. Quite a different kind of the socks the troops will give to the Huns. The Samoyeds at a famous Welland Kennels are doing their bit. All the dogs are prize winners, and their coats can yield enough wool to make 100 pairs of long sea boot stockings. The combings are thoroughly washed and rinsed until they're as fine and soft as sheep wool. And the same results can be obtained with combings from other long-haired friends, like the Old English Sheepdog, the Pekingese, the Poodle, the Chow, the Golden Retriever, the Cocker Spaniel, the Pom, and the St. Bernard. One poodle breeder we know has all her hard-wearing country clothes made from kennel combings like these. The wool is hand-teased or carded into fluffy wisps, clean, unmatted, and as light as thistledown. The coat of an old but absent friend is about to undergo a complete transformation. The dog wool is spun into yarn. A ball of wool is held in one hand, and with a twirling motion of the fingers, the strands are drawn out and run onto a spindle. Ladies of a London weaving school use it for spinning into cloth on the old-fashioned wheels. Dog wool yarn will knit as easily as any other, and into a variety of garments. The most popular are socks, mittens, and long stockings. Very doggy, very neat. The young pup seems to know he's growing a pair of mittens.
There you go. So obviously things are looking a little bit different these days, but just so you can see kind of what sort of stuff we got up to back then. We obviously did lots after that. We were trying to improve dog welfare with how they were travelled around in cars. In World War II, we were helping with shelters so that they were a bit more dog friendly, because obviously having a dog within that time must be such a worrying time with everyone going into the shelters if their pets weren't allowed down there. So we did lots of campaigns on that side of things too. But I'll jump forward a bit now. In 1967 is when we introduced our non-destruction policy, which is just our saying that we never put a healthy dog down. So that's I'm sure a well-known thing you know about Dogs Trust. I'm sure you've all heard of the saying, "A dog is for life, not for Christmas." That is a Dogs Trust slogan that we created in 1978 by a lady called Lady Clarissa Baldwin, who was our CEO at the time. And even when she stopped being a CEO, she was a board member for many, many, many years. And she's actually only retired a few months ago. So she was an amazing woman. She made the Queen our patron. So she did lots for the charity. And finally, in 2003, we changed our name to Dogs Trust. Like I say before, I think they thought that the National Canine Defence League is quite a long-winded name for a charity. It also sounded quite military. And something to do with that name meant lots of people were trying to give us their cats. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe the confusion is canine feline, but we are a dog-only charity, and you cannot get much more simple with the name Dogs Trust. And there we are. This is Dogs Trust today. So we've gone from that one centre in Fulham to 21 across the UK now. We are the UK's biggest dog-only charity. We care for 14,000 dogs a year, roughly, and the average length of stay for a dog is between 4 to 6 weeks, around 46 days. Obviously, every dog is different, and we do have our saying that we never put a healthy dog down. So if a dog needs to stay with us for however long he needs, then that's completely fine. The longest I've known a dog to stay in Dogs Trust is about 10 years. So as long as they're healthy and they're happy, if they can't find a home, that's not a problem. We'll try and find the space here. This is just another video so you can see the wide range of our sites. The thing I really love about Dogs Trust is that every rehoming centre is different. They've all got a different personality. So I'll just show you a video showing a few of them, starting with where I am in lovely Snetterton. They are, yeah. So like I say, they're all so different, and I'd love to know if any of you have ever been to any of our sites. Please let me know. You don't need to say it again though. But where do our dogs come from? So 69% are handed over by their owners. Sadly, particularly at the moment, I'd say the cost of living crisis has been a really big reason why people have handed over their dogs. They just can't afford them anymore, which is quite sad. 25%, they're either stray, passed on from local authorities, or perhaps if a charity's overrun a different one, then they might get in touch with us and we can see where we can help. 3% are born in our rehoming centres, which doesn't happen very often, but it's very exciting when it does. And 3% are illegally smuggled puppies that we might have seized at the border. But inside our centres, so there's a lot involved with adopting a dog. We like to make sure that when a dog leaves us, they are as healthy and happy as possible. So it's £225, I think, to adopt a dog at Dogs Trust, and £50 more if they adopt a puppy. And that's just to cover, I think, something about 10% of our fees for that dog for what we've paid for. When you adopt a dog with us, you get a free lead, free collar, free food sample, 4 weeks free insurance for the dog, and we have virtual home visits. So we'll ask the adopter to take a picture of their house so we can see that it's the right environment for the dog. They're always going to be vaccinated, neutered, and microchipped as well. So we want to make sure that they're really happy, really healthy before they go out to you. And we also have what we call a free advice for life for the dog. So say somebody adopts a dog with us and 5 years down the line, they get a few behavioural issues. That's not a problem. There's a helpline that they can ring and we can see where we can help, and we can set up a meeting for them. So we do all we can to make sure that that dog is your forever dog. And yeah, like I say, we are the biggest dog charity. So we have over 1,200 kennels in total. Our kennels even have underfloor heating, which is nicer than my house. So they're really swanky. And I think there's a perception to the word kennel that we try and stray as far from as possible. The idea that they're dark and dreary cages, that's not what it's like in Dogs Trust. Like I said about the underfloor heating, they've also got an indoor area, an outdoor area, and each kennel does roughly have about capacity for a couple of dogs. So they're really spacious for them. You'll notice as well that each personality of each rehoming centre, they've adapted different ways to reduce that stress for a dog too. So in that picture at the bottom left there, it leads, you'll see that there's barriers in front of the kennels. That's just to stop the dogs from being able to see each other, so that will reduce some stress for them. And on the right hand side with showroom as well, the kennels are staggered rather than next to each other. that's another way to reduce the stress as well. It just makes them a little bit harder for the dogs to look at each other. So they have all these different designed methods to try and reduce stress for dogs. They'll also have different layouts for kennels for our longer term pups. So in particular, I'd say Basildon have a really nice big kennel for their dog Paolo, who they've had quite a while. He's got a whole paddock to himself, and he's even got a human double bed in his kennel. So you can picture how big the size of this kennel is. So they'll try and make things as spacious and comfortable for the dogs as possible. All our centres have training halls as well, so that's really nice for them. Not just the dogs, but the people. You know, we can train up staff in there, volunteers. We will have community events if possible, so we'll try and get supporters in as a thank you for you know, donating to us perhaps, and we'll give them presentations, or we'll have Christmas events, summer events, that sort of thing. But it's also just a great way to have a one-to-one session with a dog as well. Sometimes we have dog school come in and teach external people bits and bobs about their dogs as well. So a nice big space that we can all use for our dogs. Every centre also has a vet room. Depending on the site, depends on the size of the vet room. For example, the one that I'm in at the moment, it's just a nice small size vet room, so that we can maybe microchip and vet check every dog that comes in. And that also reduces stress, because I'm sure you've all had dogs in the past that have maybe been quite stressed getting into a car. So we want to reduce that stress for them as much as possible. You know, this way it's right on their doorstep. Going to a vet can be stressful for any dog. So we want to, you know, make things as easy as possible. Some of our centres, these vet rooms are massive, and they're usually not just one room. You can see in that one of the top pictures there that we even have sometimes, some cases, operations rooms and recovery rooms as well for the dogs. So sometimes, you know, the dogs can even be neutered on site or have some tricky operations, and sometimes we'll do all we can, and we'll try and make it as easy as possible for the dog. Outside our rehoming centres, so every centre is so different, but we try, I've just added some so you can see all the different areas that we have. So where I am, we rent a 2-acre field from a farmer, but we also have agility paddocks and that sort of thing. You can see in Basildon there's a sand pit, there's always an agility park, there's enrichment gardens in some sites as well, so they'll plant all different herbs and for the dogs to sniff and run around on, and lots of games for them. This is so handy to have, because some of our areas such as Cardiff and Basildon, they can be built on kind of industrial areas. I'm lucky being in Norfolk because dogs have such natural accesses to all these lovely walks anyway, but for the places that are a little bit more industrial, having all this acres of different walks for the dogs is really great enrichment for them. And that's just more pictures of enrichment there. As you can see, they're maybe not the best help at gardening, but they're having a good time at least. But going the extra mile, we do so much to try and help the dogs in terms of the rehoming side of things. And it's not always easy. We don't always have the easiest dogs come into us. It can be a very challenging job. So the people who are complete stars at this are our training and behaviour advisors, and every centre has at least one. There's usually a team, and they will assess every dog that comes in. So if there's a dog that maybe they've come in because they've bitten another dog, and they maybe need to wear a muzzle for walks for the rest of their lives, then the TBAs, we call them for short, will make a training program for somebody to teach that dog to wear a muzzle nicely, that sort of thing. Or, you know, just ways to keep them busy as well. They might create kind of enrichment for the dogs. So lots of ways to make the dogs as happy as they can be in kennels. Obviously, we will sometimes get those dogs that are hard to handle. And when that happens, all the sites do communicate with each other, and we have what we call our stepping stones facilities. So Loughborough is a really nice example of that on the bottom picture there. It's a much bigger site one of our biggest ones that we've got in terms of acres of land for the dogs. So they do feel a lot more comfortable there. If they're a little bit trickier, perhaps if they've come in as a stray and they're not used to being handled by people, then this picture here in Loughborough is essentially a big field that the dog has 24-hour access to. And then when he feels like going back inside, then he can go into that building around the back and he's got access to his kennel as well. So they'll let him have a good run around however much he wants, and very, very slowly introduce him to people. Finally, another thing we have, which is my favorite place in the world, is an OAD home for our old age dogs. And that is based in Shrewsbury, and that's that picture on the right hand side there. Yeah, it's lovely. There is an age limit. You have to be 8 or older to be in the OAD home, and it's for our dogs that are in their twilight years that maybe still want their home comforts. So it was originally a rehoming centre manager's house who lived on site, but it was such a nice big house that they kicked her out and they filled it with dogs instead. And every room's been converted into a doggy bedroom, so they've got their own bed, their own sofa. I think there's a TV and a radio that plays all the time for them as well. So they're living the life of Riley, and it's just a nice place for our older dogs to go. Obviously, we can't expect all of our older dogs to go to the OAD home, bless them. So we try and make things as nice for the centre as possible within our rehoming centres. So hydrotherapy is a wonderful way to help our older dogs. It's great for their joints. It's also good for our younger dogs, even if they're healthy, particularly something like border collies that have really busy minds. That's a good way to keep them nice and busy too. So eventually they would like all rehoming centres to have a hydrotherapy suite, but it's something like £20,000 to build a hydrotherapy suite in a centre. So it's taking us a bit of time, but we've gotten up to 4 so far. And as you can see as well, it takes up a lot of space too. So we're making our way through the centres. And yeah, it would be great to have one in every centre eventually. Moving on slightly, another thing that we have as part of Dogs Trust is the Canine Care Card. So this is a completely free scheme, and I thoroughly recommend it if you do know anyone that has, maybe a dog owner that's worried about what might happen to their dog if something happened to them. So this doesn't have to be as dramatic as a death, but a hospitalization, anything like that. It's a completely free scheme. And it basically means that if the worst case scenario does happen, if you're signed up to the Canine Care Card, then we can come collect your dog and get that dog rehomed for you. So it's just really good peace of mind for a lot of people. And I've used Teddy as an example here. Teddy's actually came from my site in Snetterton. He was a very sweet dog, and sadly his owner passed away, and the owner's husband had to move into rental accommodation that couldn't allow pets in the house. So Teddy came to us, and he was a very, very nervous boy. He was very anxious. He'd never been in a kennel environment before. So our training and behaviour advisors that I spoke about before, they really helped Teddy get over kind of his anxiety issues, and he was rehomed 3 weeks later. So it's a really nice story, and I'd say 90% of our Canine Care Card stories are really happy ones, because they've usually come from such a lovely home and they're always such lovely dogs, so they get rehomed nice and quickly. So Teddy's now living the life of Riley in North Norfolk with another gentleman. This is just a video about the Canine Care Card, so I'll just play this for you in case you do know anybody that might be interested.
I've always loved dogs all through my life, and I've had many different dogs. I've got Molly, Fridge, Archie and Doris. They just give me a lot of pleasure. They're just part of my family. And rather than having a 2-legged family, I've got a 4-legged one.
When I saw Harley, I fell in love with him. The expression on his face, the way he looked at me, so appealing. He's a darling. I couldn't have wished for a nicer dog. I've made all my funeral arrangements, and the main concern in my will is that my animals are looked after and taken care of.
We do have the canine care card, which is so good because then you haven't got the worry if you're in very bad health. You know that your dog will go into Dogs Trust and be taken care of.
I saw an article about having a canine care card, which I do have. Having a card like that does give you peace of mind. It's reassuring to know that he will be looked after.
Part of their policy is that they will never put a healthy dog to sleep, and that is very important to me.
I think the Dogs Trust is an excellent organisation. They care so much about the dogs, and the dogs are so well looked after.
You know, once your dog goes to Dogs Trust, it is going to be looked after, it is going to find another home, so that alleviates any kind of worry or concern you might have about your dog. If you've got the canine care card, it will have another home and you wouldn't have to worry about it.
And I know Harley will be cared for at the Dogs Trust.
So that's the canine care card. If you do know anybody that's kind of going through those worries, then do feel free to get them in touch with me. We're more than happy to help, and it is a worry for some people. So I'll move on from that now. Another thing that Dogs Trust do is a home from home scheme, which is basically foster care. So if a dog comes into us and they're getting really stressed out in a kennel environment, then we don't want them in that environment. We want them as happy as possible. So the Home from Home scheme is completely run by volunteers who are the loveliest people. Dogs Trust pay for everything. We give, obviously pay for the vet fees. We give you the food, the black bedding and everything. We just ask for a nice bed, a nice home for the dog to be in. And that's our foster care scheme. So we're always trying to expand. If you do know any families that would be interested in looking after a dog for free, then we'd love to have them. So Gus is a dog that came to us in our Basildon branch, and bless him, he was sold online to a couple of owners, and they were misled basically with Gus's health. He arrived in a blanket all wrapped up, and they realized quite quickly that there was something wrong with his leg, and it was quite a big operation that involved that leg being amputated. The owners sadly couldn't afford that operation, so he came to us and went into foster care just so that the owner could the foster carer could keep an eye on him after his operation and give him the aftercare he needed, and he was rehomed nice and quickly. So he now lives with a lovely family and lots of other chows, I think, all running around together. So yeah, it's a very rewarding experience, and I foster when I can as well, and I absolutely love it. So it's sad saying goodbye, but it's nice knowing you've helped. This is just a video about our foster care scheme.
The emotional rewards when you see the transformation is fantastic. You send them off to their new homes and you think, yeah, I've played a very small part in that dog's future. The big yellow Dog Trust van turns up. It's always a very excited welcome.
You're their lifeline. Everything you're doing is giving them the opportunity to have more success when they leave you.
I'm lucky where I live. It's a dog-loving community. Everybody wants to know the little stories.
It's really hard to say goodbye. Later on when they're gone, you're like, oh yeah, look how far you came. And then you cry.
Such a huge transformation in such a short space of time, with no investment other than just love.
Do it, sign up, don't wait.
Just go for it.
There you go. So I'll just talk about how we are supported through the public. We're not a government funded charity, so all of our income does come through the public. So one of the main ways that we are funded is through Sponsor a Dog, which is something like £1 or £2 a week, and it's for anybody who maybe is in need of a pen pal. I know some really clever dogs that really love to write, so they give updates. There's typically about 2 dogs per centre are one of our sponsor dog, so you can pick your sponsor dog and receive updates from them. Obviously donations, we have lots of charity shops dotted around the UK, and I always call them our posh shops because they're really nice. I mean, I love a charity shop anyway, but these are really nice ones. So people obviously donating to our charity shops and buying anything from them as well. And fundraising events, I'd say just over half of our income comes from donations and half of that from fundraising events. So people running marathons for us and bake sales and all sorts. They're amazing. We wouldn't be anything without our supporters. We've also got an in memory statue in front of every centre. So they're in those pictures there of those wire dogs. I think they're called Homer. And it's something like £150, but people they donate to receive that little dog tag there. They get a copy, we get a copy. They personalize it however they like as well. So it's either for maybe a loved one that's passed away, whether that's a person or a dog. I think one of our centres has a turtle. So whatever you miss, people have a way of remembering them. And legacies as well, so remembering us in their will. That's something like just over a third of our income is from legacies, whether that's just, you know, a 1% donation that people give us, or some things here as generous as, you know, we were able to build a hall because of someone's donation, an enclosed paddock because of someone's donation, and I think that's one of the reasons why one of our hydrotherapy suites exists as well. And volunteering as well. I mean, we wouldn't be anything without our volunteers. They're the bread and butter of our charity, and you know, they're the ones that are cleaning our kennels, they're our foster carers, they're doing the maintenance, they're amazing. So that our volunteers do a great way of supporting us as well without giving anything, so they're perfect. But most importantly, the thing that matters most to us about supporting is spreading the word, particularly about the canine care card, because sadly dogs are getting put to sleep when their owner passes away. So we want to avoid that from happening as much as possible. And also foster caring, because we're always desperate for more foster carers. So if anybody knows anyone that needs help in those places, then yeah, please pass this on. But that is the future of Dogs Trust. So we're just going to continue to be there for all the dogs that need us, despite the spike we've been getting from the cost of living crisis. Carry on to our campaigns to stop healthy dogs from being destroyed, and just our general campaigns and outreach work, which I think you'll hear more about in the October session, where they'll be talking about all the stuff we're doing with our research team and our campaigning, and just ways that we're helping look at the long-term future for dogs. But thank you so much for listening. I'd love to hear if anybody has got any questions. Please feel free to let me know.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Emily. That was fascinating. That was so good. If you want to stop sharing your screen, and then we'll go through a couple of questions, if that's okay. We've got a couple of comments. I think someone said he is gorgeous, and that's from Uzu Care Home, and I think that was about Teddy, was it? The little black dog? Yeah. So he's gorgeous. I mean, most of the dogs in that were absolutely gorgeous. We've got a couple of questions saying thank you and what a wonderful job the Dogs Trust does. All of our residents are enjoying this talk, and I think that was from Jane and Rose Lodge. Brian from Parley Place says he has 2 Chihuahuas, just over 1 year old, called Emily and Bronte, which I think is brilliant. And a year ago they got married, and they were also given a rose bush, which was called Emily Bronte. So they have a rose bush and 2 dogs.
Oh, perfect. Oh, Chihuahuas are great. They're such funny little characters. They're always the ones that think they're the biggest.
I love that. It's so tiny. Brian also has a question for you, Emily. He said, when taking on a dog, how do you know what their dietary requirements are if you don't know anything about their history?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, if I'm honest, if we don't know anything about them and say they've come into us from a stray, then that is something that our training behaviour advisors would work out, and the vet, as soon as they come in, you know, there are ways to test for any allergies and that sort of thing. But yeah, we will be careful with, we'd never give a dog anything exotic anyway. So yeah, it's just keeping an eye on them, and maybe if it looks like an allergic reaction does kind of flare up or something, then we can very quickly work out where that's come from.
Nice, amazing, thank you. I have a couple more questions that I've written as we're going, but if any other homes or residents have any questions, please do get them in. Another comment saying how much the residents enjoyed the talk, so thank you very much again. So I had a couple of questions about, first of all, how do people volunteer at the centres? Like, how do they get involved with the volunteering?
Yeah, there's just so every branch has their own website, and it will always say kind of what volunteers are needed in that website. And yeah, or equally, people they'll maybe just send us an email and say, I'm free every Friday afternoon. And we've got one volunteer who's she does the gardening for us once a week, and she's been great, and she's helped us with our enrichment garden, and planting all the nice herbs and flowers and everything for the dogs. So she's been great as well. So yeah, sometimes people will just send us an email and say what sort of skill they have, and we'll see how they can help. We'll always take more. So
yeah, that's nice. Love that. So Woodhurst residents have also said that they're spending the afternoon remembering the dogs that they've had in the past in their lives, which is really lovely.
That's great.
So another question that came through was, do many dogs get returned after they've been adopted?
Yeah, sadly they do. We do have quite a few. We call it return to kennel, and yeah, we get quite a few return to kennels. That sometimes it's not always the adopter's fault. It can be change of circumstance, that sort of thing, but sadly that does happen quite often. We had actually one come in recently, and it was a return to kennel after 10 years. So the owner had sadly gotten too unwell to look after the dog anymore, but she'd given him the loveliest, longest life. So we were all, if anything, just so pleased to see him again. And yeah, he was quickly adopted again, so it was fine.
Yeah. Oh wow. Well, I mean, 10 years is a brilliant life anyway, so that's fab. I was wondering, when your rehoming centres look amazing, they look incredible. But you showed us all the different ways of kind of reducing stress, like the barriers or them having them staggered. I was curious why it's kind of different, and whether there was a best way to do that, or whether it just depends on kind of the room.
Exactly. It depends on the building that's been purchased, if I'm being honest. I mean, they will typically all have the same sort of methods. Nearly all, in fact, all rehoming centres. Obviously, you've got the front of the kennel, but at the back of the kennel, they'll all have their own door as well. So that stops stress. They don't have to see each other as they walk past. And they've all got the same sort of techniques, but it's just the different layouts of the building.
Nice, cool. That actually leads me on to my next question, which is, when the dogs, you showed us like the enrichment and like the sand places and stuff, when they're running around outside, are they kind of, I'm wondering whether it's like school, like playtime, where they're all just allowed out to play, or whether they have to have someone with them all the time. Like, what's the kind of arrangement, I guess?
Yeah, they'll always be on a lead if it's kind of out and about until they get into an enclosed area, and then they'll just, they can let them off the lead and they can have a good run around. Sometimes if they know that there's a dog that they really get on well with, they've got a doggy friend here, then they might let them hang out together. But yeah, it depends on the dog that's come in. Sometimes they prefer to be by themselves, so we do try and get them to socialize with other dogs if we can. So
yeah, and a doggy friend, that's so good. A couple of other questions. How many people do you know, how many people work for Dogs Trust in the country?
No idea. That is such a good question. So Snetterton, where I am now, this is the 4th smallest branch, and we're a team of 35, and that's without the volunteers. So I will find that out actually and let you know, because I'd love to know.
Yeah, but the smallest, I mean, one of the smallest with 35, there must be
exactly,
the biggest ones must be insane.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we have about 55 to 60 kennels here, and the next site from us, the closest one is in Essex, and that's got 120 kennels. So that must, I would assume.
Oh, wow, so like double. Yeah, amazing. Brian, who has Emily and Bronte, the dogs, he said, our dogs can be naughty at times, but they never judge, and they give us unconditional love and company.
Oh, that's great.
Very lovely. I was thinking that it's just so nice, isn't it? That woman who was saying that she doesn't have a 2-legged family, she has a 4-legged family, and I think that's a really nice, such a nice sentiment. I don't have any more questions. If anybody else wants to send somebody, I have one more, but if anybody else wants to send any in, please feel free to do so. And my last one is, I guess, a personal question, Emily. What is your favorite part about working for the Dogs Trust?
Every day is completely different. I'd say that's probably my favorite thing. I never know what I'm going to come into each day. Never know. The turnaround of dogs is so nice and quick that you never know what dog you're going to meet. You never know, who might need your help. And I love speaking to the public, and I love hearing all the different stories. And although you do get sad, I saw somebody post a comment saying, "Is it not sad for somebody to give up their dog?" It's so hard for some people, and some days you leave in tears because you feel so bad for the person, but you always hear every day a different happy ending, which is lovely. So I'd say that's my favorite.
I love that. It's very, I guess, swings and roundabouts. There are sad parts, but then it's equally like you said about the dog that was returned, that he has had 10 years of happiness, and that's a gorgeous thing to focus on. Lisa, I'm not sure what home she's from, but Lisa has said, how many dogs have you taken home? Because you mentioned that you foster sometimes. So how many have you fostered?
So I'm quite I have to kind of stagger it because I work away quite often. So there are lots of times where I can't have a dog at my home. But I think, I don't know, maybe about 7. So I wouldn't say a huge number, but yeah, I love it. And it is sad saying goodbye, but I've looked after a little terrier who we don't even know his age, but we think at least 15. He was blind and deaf, and he got adopted. And so every single dog I've looked after has found a home, and so it is nice. I'm yet to find one where I kind of bumped into them in the streets. That's what I'd love to just go on a walk and come across one, but I do get updates sometimes saying that they're doing really well. So
great. It must be such a good feeling, like you said, hard to say goodbye, but so nice to kind of facilitate them getting on their way and like helping them on their journey, I suppose.
Yes, it's maybe less nice for my partner because I don't give him much warning, and I do just kind of come home with a dog in my hand.
I mean, I wouldn't complain about that. If someone just walked into my house with the dog, I don't think I'd complain. So that question was actually from Hampton Grove. Thank you, Hampton Grove. And Durham House have just come in saying, we want to go, well, we can maybe look at this for next time. They're asking whether we could potentially go live or see any footage of the dogs in one of the shelters. So maybe Emily and I can have a chat about that for the next.
Absolutely. What I can do in the meantime, there's no dog here, but so I'm based in a training barn. And so this is where the training barn, I'm actually on the top floor, and it all goes under here. So I think underneath me is a dog getting trained at the moment, but that's one of our nice big areas. But yes, that's a good idea. I can speak to one of the girls and see next time they can have a dog to hand.
Amazing. Yes, that is everything. I think I can't see any more questions. So thank you everybody for sending those in. Thank you, Emily, for answering them all and for delivering such a brilliant talk. Yes, that's all for today. So thank you everybody. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for being with us today, Emily. Lots of comments saying how wonderful the chat was, and how much everybody loves dogs. So thank you.